So on today's episode, we had Jane Frederick, who's an architect, and even though I'm not an architect or engineer, I was able to understand what she was talking about in the whole realm of you can't take a northern style house and put it in the South. And I really enjoyed her enthusiasm and her passion about what she was talking about. Was there anything you gathered from the episode?
Yeah, I mirror what you say. I mean, I'm not an architect either. I'm a structural engineer, but I was able to pick up on the basic thesis of her book, which is, I think you picked up exactly what it is, which is what the quandary that happened in the post-World War II era was they would build similar to up north down in the South, and that created a lot of problems. So that's really what a big part of what the book is about that she has coming out. So check out her book, Jane and Michael Frederick. It's architecture in a Southern vernacular style. And I learned what that means. I learned a lot about Jane and Michael and just the practice they have. So the passion they have for architecture, the passion they have for design, residential architecture specifically. And so whether you're the A, E, or C part of the AEC industry, I think you'll benefit from this and just to understand the construction style and just the passion for design. So my name's Andy Richardson, and this is my producer, Madeline, and this is the Enhanced Podcast, where we learn about professionals in the AEC industry and what their what is and what their why is. So come along with us and check out this next episode with Jane Frederick. Let's jump to the intro.
Welcome to Enhance, an AEC podcast, where we learn the why behind AEC professionals so that you can learn your why.
Yeah, well, welcome to the Enhanced Podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Jane, we're live, so I'm glad to have you in studio today for the podcast. I wanted to start right out with the topic you brought up a minute ago, which is your book that just came out.
No, it's coming out in September, but you can pre-order it on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it hadn't come out yet, so I did see that on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
And I just want to know one thing. What inspired you to write the book?
So Michael, who's my partner, both in life and in business, we've been talking about writing a book for a long time. And we're really focused on sustainability. And I can give you the backstory in a minute if you want. But we wanted to give resources to homeowners so that they could build a sustainable, resilient home. Because all the books that we're aware of that are written for sustainability for homeowners are for cold climates. Mm-hmm. And a hot, humid climate detailing is totally different than a cold climate. You know, they're talking about you want massive insulation walls, and that's not what we need in the hot, humid climate. We need you to spend your money on the best windows that you can afford. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a big difference in how we go about that.
So definitely the energy side is one facet.
Right.
But there's other facets of the book as well, right?
Right. So just walking through it, so Michael and I, how we got interested in all of really building science is back in 2000, early 2000s, we had a couple of houses beachfront in Hilton Head. They were going to be small projects. One of them, we were going to reside the house. The other one was we were doing a small addition and replacing some windows. Pulled off the exterior skin. It was full of termites, mold and mildew. You know, the people were living in it. And the next day we had people in hazmat suits, you know, gutting the house to rebuild it. And these were like 20-year-old houses.
Sure.
And you're thinking, what is wrong? You know, they were built to code and they shouldn't be full of mold and mildew. So we started researching then and discovered Joe Steibeck. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like the father of building science.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You know. Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, one of his sayings was, you know, building codes of the past 100 years were written by cold weather chauvinists. And so he really, in the, 2000 to 2005, really flipped the building science for hot, humid climates on its head. You know, that's when we started doing conditioned crawl spaces, when we started, insulating at the perimeter of the building envelope and not having a vented attic with hot, humid air up there. And so that really started our journey on building science. And at the same time, if you think about how did we get there? I mean, why were houses all of a sudden built in 1980 horrible? They didn't used to be.
Right.
So if you look back, it kind of makes a lot of sense. So traditional houses built in the South, before air conditioning, we based it on several things. One, they were raised up off the ground. That increased circulation. It also got us up out of the floodplain, off the damp ground. High ceilings for the heat to rise. Porches on the south to block the sun. Single width buildings for the cross ventilation. And the combination of all that made it bearable to live in this hot, humid climate. Then after World War II, when all the soldiers were returning with the GI Bill, there was just lots of houses to be built. So developers started thinking about, how can we build this faster? How can we put up houses fast enough for all of these returning GIs? And what they did is they started, think about Levittown in New Jersey, so they started doing modular pieces. So they had 2x4 8-foot studs. They had like homosote for the exterior sheathing, drywall, when before we had lath and plaster.
Sure.
And we had the exterior sheathing prior to that would have been, 1x6.
Right.
Yeah. With a full 2x4 stud with the lath and plaster. So nothing that mold and mildew would want to eat. It would dry out if it got wet. So they started building with really paper-based products. And they forgot all about the vernacular lessons or didn't pay attention to them because they were trying to put it up fast. And then they air conditioning it. And so then you're bringing in that intersection between the attic and the conditioned space. That's, you would have condensation, and that's when you would have potential mold and mildew. And then it really got worse in the 70s with the oil embargo, because then everybody super insulated their house, but they still had that vented attic and the vented crawl space, so it just got worse.
Okay.
And so that sort of was the low point of construction, I think.
Okay, the mid-'80s.
The mid-'80s.
Right, okay.
And then, as you know, structurally, the next big thing that really happened to change building codes was after Hurricane Andrew. And that's when they realized that we need to do different things structurally and to keep the roof from coming off,
Right.
And so that's when we started tying it down from the roof to the foundation. And then after that, subsequently, they discovered other things, because before, if you didn't have a roof, you weren't worried about water infiltration around your windows and doors, particularly, because if you didn't have a roof, it didn't matter. And so that's when they developed all the DP rating and how to seal windows and doors like they should be. So it's sort of an interesting journey how it's all. But then in the book, so we talk about a lot of that. So we talk about the vernacular traditions to begin with. Then we talk about siding your house, because to be sustainable, you really need to run your house the long side. The skinny part would be facing east and west, so that you don't have the harsh sun coming in your west side particularly. And it's easier to shade on the south side, and you don't have to worry too much about the north side. So siding it a lot. Then we talk about a lot of building science and how to put the wall together. And we talk about it on a high level, because we want the people reading the book to have enough information that they can talk to their architect or their builder intelligently to say, what are we doing about, to make this building tight, what's our blower door test going to be?
Okay.
Some of the codes require, like in Tennessee, requires your blower door test to be 7, and that's just horrible. I mean, you need it down to about 1.5. So it's talking to about some of that. Then we talk about the building system, so your HVAC, your water, your electrical, and in our climate, you have to have solar to get it to net zero. So how do you incorporate all that? And then we talk a chapter on resiliency. How do you build for hurricanes, which we rely a lot on our structural engineers for that. With as you know, designing the shear wall, all the moment frames or whatever we need for that, but also your impact glass, your raising it up out of the floodplain, just the different steps that you do for that. And then we talk about aging in place, because you want to have your home last for your lifetime and beyond.
Yeah, it sounds like a great resource.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, we're super excited about it.
And it to what you were saying about your research, there really isn't much of an answer to that right now in terms of these specific solutions, in terms of a written book.
Right. Yeah. No, there's not that much. I mean, Joe Steinbeck has his guide for hot, humid climates, but it's really technical. I mean, I think it's a little more than most homeowners would want to dig into. It's, I mean, some would, but ours is more not just the structure and envelope of the building, but just comprehensive more about.
Yeah. Okay.
Building.
And so this is actually, I mean, this is geared toward homeowners
primarily. Yes.
And giving them the knowledge, the tools to be able to go out and work with their architect, maybe they don't have an architect.
Right. Work just with their builder, or, because so many homes don't have an architect, or they might have had an architect that did a plan book, but there's not an architect that they're working with when it's being constructed. And so it's gives them information to.
Yeah, and that plan book might be written for the North.
Exactly.
And so make sure you read the book and
right. And it would help you select a plan to think, okay, this is where the orientation of my lot, what shape of house, what form of house would fit best on this for sustainability purposes. Like I was talking to a friend of mine, Elaine Gallagher. I don't know if Elaine Gallagher Adams. Do you know her? She's an architect.
No.
She lives between here and Maine, but she worked for the Rocky Mountain Institute. She does sustainability on the macro level. Like, she works on sustainable hospitals, which is kind of net zero hospitals, which has to be super complicated. But she was talking to a developer that had done some houses that were super sustainable and net zero, and had solar batteries, everything. And he said, I think I'll just copy these on the other side of the street. And she's like, no, they won't work on the other side of the street because the orientation's different. You have to think about how the roof is oriented so you get that southern exposure. So, a lot of people just don't think that through everything that sometimes might be obvious to us.
And it's adapting I love that, because the site is so important, and it's adapting the design to the site, not just grabbing something and slapping it anywhere.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of people might just look at the plan to say, this works on how I want to live, not thinking about, does it work for this site, this part of the country, this climate.
Yeah. Now I was reading some previews about the book. It was discussing different of the vernacular styles and forms, and maybe you could hit on what are a couple of those.
Sure. So I think one that a lot of people are familiar with is the Charleston single house.
Okay.
So the Charleston single house is raised up one story. It's typically one room wide. It has the porch on the south facing side. But what's different about that is the way most of the streets where they are owned in Charleston is the narrowest, the east and west face the streets. So they have that door going onto the porch That's the front of the house.
Okay.
But it's still a single wide house raised up with the double story porch. So it does all those vernacular lessons that we had learned. So
Right.
that's one of them. Another one that you see a lot that's really the same as a Charleston single house, but it's called a I house. It's the same form, but you enter onto the porch from the middle of the porch.
Okay.
And you see a lot of those around Buford. A particular Buford one is the Buford Tea House.
Okay. Is that like the main street here? Or
Yeah, there's several of them. So what it is the house is T-shaped, and at the intersection of the T is where the vertical circulation is, where the staircase is, and then there's a porch that wraps three sides,
Okay.
all facing south.
Yeah.
So you have, two single width rooms here and a single width room here, and then the staircase here.
Yeah. So there's a reason for the staircase in the middle. It helps with the flow of air.
With the air, yeah, both
Okay.
the air and the vertical circulation. So that's another one. Another one that we use a lot is a dog trot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people might be familiar with those. They were also called two pens and a passage, but they're two single width rooms with an open porch in between them, and they're all under one roof. And then that open space in the middle, because of the Bernoulli effect, the winds come around the edge of the building and increase in the dog trot space.
Okay.
And we've done several. We have one out on Browns Island that we did. And whenever we would go out when it was under construction, the contractors, the construction workers were always in the dog trot. They had set up their saw in there. They would eat lunch in there just because the breeze was that much cooler in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like that Bernoulli effect as an engineer. So
Yeah.
I love that terminology. So yeah, as you narrow the width of an opening, the wind pressure or the speed increases.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the concept.
Yeah. So it forces a breeze to go through there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was it. I just thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm learning today is a lot of these things, and I think part of the point of the book, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the point. Is it's not just for a cool look, like a tea house look. It was there for a reason. It was because it was hot down here. There was no air conditioning.
Right.
And we needed a way to cool off, so we created this dog trot to sort of cool down.
Exactly.
Yeah. So and that's really neat. And even just from a almost historical standpoint, I think there's value in bringing and keeping these aspects.
Well,
in play.
It keeps the sense of place.
Yes.
That I think what happened after World War II, like with Levittown and all that, everything started looking alike.
Mm-hmm.
And for our architecture, there's local materials, there's the local vernacular traditions. I mean, to think about how we would build to keep cool. Conversely, if you were in a cold climate, you're doing something totally different. You're building a box with low ceilings to conserve all your heat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a reason why you would build for whatever climate you had. And then the other thing, if you think about using local materials, so we use a lot of cypress, and that's almost indestructible. I mean, it resists rot. It's lasts an extremely long time, but it looks right because it belongs here. And
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, yeah. But the other thing you might think about is if you see a stone fireplace here in Buford, you think, that is so weird looking.
Okay.
And it's because we don't have any stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously from someplace else. Or if you think about an Italian village that you're up in the bell tower looking out of it, and the clay tile roofs are all the same color, and they sort of match the hills, it's because the clay tile was matched from the clay from the local area.
Right.
So it blends in.
Yeah, if you were to do a project there, you would probably use those materials.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So that sounds really awesome about the book, and a real good resource for, I think, our listeners. I want to go all the way back to your background a little bit, and change gears a bit.
Okay.
In terms of just what sparked you to get into architecture to begin with.
Um, my art teacher in high school really encouraged me. My father was an aerospace engineer,
Okay.
and my mother was a interior decorator, and so sort of a combination of the skills that I learned from them or inherited from them. And then my art teacher really suggested that I look at architecture, and I did and enjoyed it.
Yeah, and never look back.
No, no,
Well, that's great. It sounds like the art teacher hit the nail on the head.
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and having
And
the,
she just died this year at age 95.
oh wow,
Yeah,
okay. Oh, sounds like she lives a great and long
yeah.
life. Um, so and you've been working with your husband for a period of time.
Yes, we have.
Together,
We have
right?
worked. We will celebrate. We just celebrated 36 years in business, and we've been married 41.
Oh wow.
So it's working out so far.
And together.
Together,
in the
yeah,
business.
yeah. So we graduated in '82. So we worked for, like, engineers. You have to work for somebody else for a little while before you can get licensed or to take the exams to get licensed. And so we worked for other people for a while, and we're in the Washington D.C. area. Michael had started his own firm with a high school friend, and I was freelancing because our girls were babies. And we came down here on vacation, and Michael said I could live here.
Okay.
And 3 months later, we lived here, and that was in 1989
Yeah.
that we moved.
And did you do any market research, or I mean, was
We did some. So at that time, Data was extremely new. Braze Island was just getting started. I mean, Data was probably 5 or 6 years old, maybe a little older, but
Mhm.
not real old. Braze Island was just getting started. Um, Jim Thomas was the only architect in town. There had been another architect that had just moved away. And we came down and met with several bankers, and they said, yeah, I think it would be good.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that was a good market research.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of market research, but yeah. And so we moved and hung out our shingle, and
Yeah, awesome. And so one thing I usually work with some of your other architects in the office, like Benji
Uh-huh.
and Tom, but and one of the things I was thinking about before this was just how you've been in business for a long time, but also you have a team that's
right,
been
yeah.
pretty
So
steady.
Tom has been with us, I think maybe 12 or 13 years, and Benji will be 10 years this year. So
Yeah, that's an incredible
yeah,
thing because it's hard to keep talent. It's hard to find talent. It's hard to keep talent.
right.
And I mean, I can attest. I enjoy working with both of those uh, architects. And what is there a secret to the teamwork building that you have and keeping talent in place?
I don't micromanage.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to, well, and we have a very mature staff right now. So it's everybody's very capable and runs their own projects and has a lot of autonomy, which I think is important to grow. And we're working on the process that they'll take over from Michael and I. So it's,
So there's a vision there.
yeah,
I think that's probably part of it too.
right.
I got a vision to take over.
Right, because
company.
I mean, everybody wants to keep advancing and growing, and I think that's what we try to provide.
And what's the secret of running a business with your spouse?
I don't know if there's a secret. I mean, we kind of do different things,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is important. And we, I think over the years, what, and you probably know this too, but is that what's really important is who your clients are, who you work with, and your clients are pretty much architects, I would guess, more so than just individuals, homeowners.
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of architects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for us, all of our clients are individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Homeowners typically are going to be this new homeowner. And we figured out who we like to work with and who we don't want to work with. I mean, that's, and I think our big tell is if typically it's a couple. And if the couple are not kind to each other when we meet with them, it's like we don't want to work with them.
Mm. Yeah. And usually it's like you see these tiny little insights early on. If it's happening at that very first meeting, imagine what it's going to be during construction when
Right, when there's a lot more stress there. The other thing that we really try to do is to relieve any stress that could be there during the build. I mean that so we have everything selected before we start construction, so that it's not the contractor calling up and say, I've got to have the tile selected by tomorrow. You know,
Mhm.
we've selected it
Okay.
before we start. You know, we've selected everything before we start. So what that does is, one, we don't have any allowances because it's been selected, so we have a real price. You know, things might change if, you know, there's a hurricane and plywood prices go up or something like that. But there's no allowances that, you know, sometimes if there's an allowance, it's not realistic, you know, that it's just it's a number. It's not based on real things. And then we also do construction administration. So we're going
Mhm.
out to the job site to answer questions and make sure everything. And as an engineer, you know how important that is. I
Mhm.
mean, because you can't draw everything.
Right.
And I mean, I guess you could, but nobody would want to pay you to draw everything.
Right.
And so as questions come up during construction, I think it's nobody's better suited to answer than the architect or the engineer
Mhm.
that had thought about this project for a couple of years and know what the design intent is to answer that question instead of just doing what you think might be right if you're a contractor. And the other thing that we found is that particularly subcontractors, they want to get on the job site and do their job and to know what that is, you know, just that this is how we want the siding laid out, or this is how we want this to happen, instead of them taking a lot of time to figure out what we were thinking.
Right. Or they may guess.
Oh, they get, if you're not there, they'll guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I think that construction is, I believe construction is an extension of design.
Yeah, exactly.
To where, like you mentioned, you can't draw every single thing,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you did, you get out there and your mind changes.
Right.
As a designer, as a contractor, and as an owner,
Mm-hmm.
that everybody changes because you get out there and you're like, well, that stud looks really tall.
Yeah.
Or, you know, this would look really cool if we put a niche here or something.
Right.
You know, so do you find that is true about the construction phase?
We don't do too many design changes
Okay.
in construction. One of the things that we do, and as you've been over to the office to see, is that, you know, we build it in a Revit model, and so
Mhm.
our clients could put on the virtual reality glasses and walk around in it, and that helps a whole lot
Okay.
because a lot of people can't visualize what it looks like. And even if you do pretty much understand, putting on those 3D glasses really nails it down. I mean, it's we don't render it to the final colors. It's a grayscale, but it's very realistic.
Okay.
I mean, so much so that if somebody is on a staircase that we haven't put a handrail on it yet, they're kind of like,
Get a little dizzy.
uh-huh.
um,
Better not get over to the close to the edge.
yeah. So, how long have you been implementing the VR technology?
Oh, I'm gonna say maybe 2015,
Okay.
16, a while.
Yeah. So you've pretty much mastered it by
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
probably,
We
right?
started on Revit in 2007.
Okay. I
And
mean, you were
we started on AutoCAD in 1985.
okay.
I mean, we're old enough that we didn't learn it in school, but we learned it right after we graduated.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had those really fast 286 computers. And when we got the 386, wow, we were just so fast we couldn't stand it.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of changes in the industry.
Yeah.
What is the biggest one you've seen so far?
Um, well, one using computers, but I think the change from AutoCAD to Revit was a huge change because Revit being model based, you know, if you change the windows, it changes your window schedule, it changes it on all the draw, you know, it's so it eliminates a lot of coordination issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're drawing by hand and you changed a window, you would think, okay, so where else is that window showing up?
Right.
Oh, it's in that section and it's in that elevation. Oh, and it's in those two interior elevations and the window schedule. And if you change it in Revit, it changes it everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing.
Yeah.
Was that a difficult transition to go from AutoCAD to Revit?
It was a little bit of a learning curve, and I'm still not great on families in Revit. But a lot of it is, it's different in that in Revit you're actually building the house, whereas in AutoCAD or drawing it by hand, you're drawing lines representing a wall.
Yeah.
Whereas in Revit, it's a 2x6 wall with, this zip sheathing and this siding and this thick drywall or wood or whatever.
Yeah, and that can be how you represent that family, how you represent that wall can be a challenge in itself. At least I've found, just like when we're using those backgrounds for structural, and then like that sheathing, for example, is that the edge of the stud or is that the edge of the wall?
Right.
That whole conversation we've had numerous times. And one of the things we have is different architects.
Yeah, and everybody does it their own way, right?
Everybody does it differently. So we have to really adapt.
Yeah. So do most architects here use Revit, or a lot of people still using AutoCAD?
We have such a variety. I would say Revit is definitely growing. It's still growing, but maybe half. That's just the ballpark. But there's all the way from AutoCAD, DataCAD, ArchiCAD. We even have PowerCAD.
I've never heard of that one.
Which is a Mac based.
Okay.
And hand drawing still.
Wow.
And napkins, which we have a few napkins because we do work with the homeowners.
Right. Yeah.
And they come in and they might have a small job, and so they'll bring us a napkin sketch.
Right. Those are we might send some of those to you because it's people that have a plan book house and they need the structural design to get a building permit.
Yeah. And I mean, we're happy to do it as long as they pay the fee.
Right.
So, yeah, so we've definitely seen a lot of evolution in technology. The VR, that's pretty impressive that you're using that. Is there anything else that you see coming up, that like a trend that you see?
Well, there's a lot of talk about what AI will do for us. We've played around with it some in the office. Benji's been using it some for enhancing renderings, like adding this or that to a rendering, which is pretty cool. We had fun one day just playing with it, with doing field reports in different tones of voices.
Yeah.
But we're not using it really for any design work yet. It's
not quite there yet.
I don't think it's there yet, or if it is, we haven't figured it out.
Right.
Are you using any AI?
I mean, just research, maybe, and things like that, maybe to help with some writing, but not for. We have toyed with one for field reports. It's actually a software geared toward that. Inspect Mind is the name of it. We haven't adopted it fully yet. So we're not like a huge AI office either. I do like this one actually. So this is we record these in Read AI. So a lot of your note takers for like Zoom meetings,
right? We're
using that, which I consider AI, because you can go back and review the summary, and a lot of we do a structural charrette.
Yes.
Before our the deal, and I like to record those with permission, of course, and that'll create like a summary, which we can use to help us, because what will happen is you may say, hey, we want to use cypress for the roof beams or something. Well, that'll come out in the bullet points, and so those are some of the things we use for AI. But yeah, I definitely think for design work, I agree, it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And just my small amount of research. So I want to go into a little bit of, I mean, we talked about what's going well for you guys and like your team. Is there any challenges you've seen as running a business or with projects?
Well, we were talking about before we started recording, being in a small town, sometimes it's really hard to get employees to move here. You know,
Yes.
and even if it's not hard to get somebody here, you have to really make sure you're ready for that commitment to an employee, because I don't want to hire somebody and then 6 months later say, sorry, we don't have the work. You know, that you really want to make sure that you have the work to commit to an employee to bring them here. I mean, because you pretty much have to bring somebody here. There's not just a lot of loose architects wandering around.
Right, unless you want to just grab them from somebody else. I
Right,
guess.
right. So that's one of the bigger challenges. And then you know, just the ups and downs of the economy. It's always, you have to be prepared for it. I mean, we've been through a number of recessions. Fortunately, none as bad as the 2008 to 2012 recession. That one was pretty horrible.
Right, especially I mean, and you guys have really focused on residential.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So when we first started, we would do almost anything that walked into the door, and then around 2001 or so, we decided that we really wanted to focus on residential. We had been doing a lot of residential prior to that, but I think there's something about being in a small town when there's a big public building or commercial project. The thought is, oh, we have to get an out-of-town expert.
Right. No, I've seen that.
Yeah. So it was frustrating and challenging, and we thought, you know, in Beaufort, the really fun projects are the residential ones. So we've focused on residential, and what we do is try to really expand our range. So, like right now, we have projects in Georgia and Florida. Here, we do a lot of work in Hilton Head. So it's, you know, just spreading where we do work to make sure that we have enough going on.
Yeah. Okay. But right now, you know, your office is very in real life. It's
Oh yeah, everybody's in real life. Yeah. No, it was funny because during the early days of the pandemic, everybody went home for about 6 weeks, and then they said, we don't like being at home. We want to come back. So
yeah. And I mean, you know, that was what we were discussing. It definitely, we're a, I say post-COVID remote company, but it definitely brings its pros and cons.
Yeah.
You know, because you want to just say, this is what I'm talking about. And we can jump on a Google Meet or what have you, or, you know, we do have people that are hybrid enough to where we can get in together. So that's the disadvantage, but there are advantages. I find it to be less distracting, actually, to be, you know, in this environment. And
right.
It's just easier for me to work a lot of days. But
I can see that because we're all in one room, and if a contractor walks in, and they always come straight back into the drafting room, it disrupts everybody while they're there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see being by yourself, that you could focus a lot better. And I know that remote work, especially for people that have a commute, is really nice. You know that.
Yeah.
But we don't have to worry about that too much here. So that's.
Yeah, you have a very short commute.
I have a very short commute. Yeah.
So you mind sharing about that?
Okay, yeah. So our house and our office is on the same piece of property, and we moved in there in '92, and the office was a contractor's office. So we were grandfathered into the neighborhood, and we've renovated that twice. But the studio part was a garage, and so we raised the roof 4 feet. So it's a nice, bright, airy space. And then the other part, you know, is the conference room and storage and our VR room. And then our house is right behind it, and it's was a Quonset hut, or it still is a Quonset hut, that was put up after World War II, and we've gutted that and added different buildings to it. So our commute is about not even 100 yards.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful place, by the way.
Oh,
so
thanks.
You had us over recently. Well, of course, we come over from time to time for project work, but also you had a nice oyster roast
right,
a few times. Is there another one of those coming up?
Yes, we're going to have a big oyster roast this fall for the book launch.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hope to get some good oysters and
Yeah,
find
we
out more
will.
about the book. Um, yeah, so one of the things I really like to just find out about, I think we've gotten a sense of it throughout the time, is just really what the driving force of what you do is, because you've been doing it for a long time, you've stayed focused on it, and something has to keep you on that, right?
Well, what really is, a lot of people don't think about or don't know that buildings can typically add about 40% of the carbon to the atmosphere. And that's both in operations and what we call embodied carbon, which is in the steel, in the concrete, in the materials in the building. And so, really focusing on how we can reduce carbon because we need to, we have to.
Okay.
And like right now, we're starting to do a lot. At one point, depending on the site, over the years, we've done a lot of wood piling foundations because of tree roots. But now we're starting to think, well, we need to do that because we won't need steel and concrete as much.
Okay.
Because the biggest carbon hogs in your building is steel and concrete and aluminum.
Okay.
And if you can reduce those, which is really a challenge for a structural engineer.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of green concrete if you use more fly ash and make the mix the right thing. And then the other thing that I discovered when I was writing the book is that U.S. steel is a lot cleaner than steel made in China.
Okay.
Because the U.S. steel, how it's made, is just a cleaner process of making it. So that helps reduce the carbon footprint right away.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we're really, just to make that sustainable. So sustainable, is really kind of big because you have to think about healthy materials too.
Mm-hmm.
People might say, luxury vinyl tile is great stuff. It's indestructible, it's inexpensive, and you can get some that looks really good.
Yeah.
But it's full of carcinogens. And so you have your baby crawling around, licking the floor. Or it's made in Cancer Alley in Louisiana, so that when they manufacture it, all the people living around it are just, they call it Cancer Alley for a reason, because of the fumes and the particles that are emitted from the processing of petroleum products. And that's what vinyl's made out of, is petroleum.
Right.
So thinking about what materials that you put in. I mean, and a friend of mine that's an architect, Corey Squire, says that it's sort of like the Michael Pollan book that he talks about. You should eat local, fresh foods and not very much of it. So he says with building materials, you should use local materials, real materials, wood and stone, and what it is. It's not like all this list of ingredients that are in it.
Right.
And that's close by, so you don't have all that transportation cost to bring it. So, that adds more, when you're thinking about the sustainability part of it, if you use a local material, you don't have to bring it from across the country or from China. So you're saving all that transportation cost. So it's a lot of things to think about, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think sustainability, the definition has somewhat changed as well over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
And now you've mentioned the resilience component,
Right.
Which I can definitely resonate with as a structural engineer, because, and you mentioned what that is, which is, making sure not only is it sustainable in the sense of good for the environment, but also it sustains. It's resilient.
Right. And to think about too that it's resilient. So a lot of our clients, when they come to us, they might say, we want a generator. And we'll say, well, have you thought about doing solar panels and a battery backup wall? And you get great tax credits for that. But then to make it even more resilient, so after a weather event, if your building has stood up well and you have operable windows and you have solar panels with a battery backup wall, you can live there. I mean, so it's resilient that you can stay in your house until you get power back up.
You
know,
you don't have to tear demo that house and rebuild it or something.
Exactly, and throw all that in the wet landfill. That's
which that to me is just a waste.
Yes.
To do that. So yeah, well, it sounds like you have a real passion for that.
Oh, I do.
Aspect of things, and you really bring that into all of your projects. Is there anything else you wanted to get into today, Jane?
I think we've covered most everything, unless you have any other questions for me.
I guess one just fun question.
Okay.
I mean, what is it that you like to do to help with? I mean, we hear about work-life balance. What do you do to help balance out the stress?
Okay, so the one thing that I can do that I totally just clears my mind is I like to work jigsaw puzzles.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because you're just looking for that other piece, and you're just focusing on the colors and the shapes, and it just really clears my mind. And I love to cook too, but that's not quite as mind clearing as a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, because there's a deadline to that too, right?
Yeah,
just like your projects. Any interesting jigsaw puzzles?
Well, I have a friend here in town that has she's turned me on to Liberty puzzles, and they're wood cut.
Okay.
And they're all kind of interesting shapes. So I've been working my way through her collection of those, which has been fun.
So even your toys are sustainable.
Right, yes.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, and Jane, you said we can get that book. Can you remind us again how to get that?
So it's available for pre-order right now on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, and it will be out September 28th.
Okay, and what if I need an architect? How do I reach out to you?
So our firm is Frederick and Frederick Architects, and our website, you can Google Frederick and Buford, and I hope we come up pretty quickly. But it's f-farchitects.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, it was a joy to have you today.
Oh, it was great fun. Thanks, Andy.
We'll have this uploaded here soon.
Okay,
all right.
Good.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to today's episode of